Christian, Jack, and I had a conversation recently about persuasion, specifically the psychology of persuasion, and some simple things that we probably are not even paying attention to that could be impacting the way that we're doing our deals. As we dive into this episode, you're going to learn some interesting things you probably didn't remember or realize when it comes to persuasion. Check it out. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, I'm here with the one and only Christian Jack. We're going to talk about persuasion, specifically the psychology of persuasion, and why this is so important for us as sales professionals to understand, to grasp, and how we can make sure we're doing it effectively. Now, if this is your first time listening to our podcast, please subscribe. If you have been listening for a minute, I'll ask you to go ahead and take this episode, share it with somebody else because they're going to love you because you shared it with them. Christian and I break down the nonverbal, we go into verbal communication, then we go into nonverbal communication, and then we go into listening. All of this wrapped together with some examples and some different details, digging down into each of those areas of how we can become more persuasive and the psychology behind it. Oh man, this is lovely. It's going to be amazing. I want you to go ahead and take some notes, apply this stuff. And if you haven't done so already, find me on LinkedIn, Donald C. Kelly. Donald C. Kelly. Would love to connect with you there. Let's jump in. We'll get a chance to hear about these three areas. And first, we're going to go straight into the verbal communication. Ooh, you're going to love it. Christian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Donald. Appreciate you being here. It's a good time.
I'm excited to be able to chat with you about this. Persuasion, I feel like Brian Tracy had a book, I think it was him, The Art of Persuasion or Psychology of Persuasion way back then. But I feel like so many people, I'll stop speaking in generality and speak for myself. I feel like I have abandoned that idea of persuasion because I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to persuade people as much, but there's certain human behavior that is so critical, and we may do it but don't realize it. But imagine systematizing it and having that consistently, what that could look like. So I'm excited for that reason. But tell us a little bit about your business. What makes you so excited about persuasion?
Man, I think it is exactly what you said. It'll sound a little cliche coming from a sales professional, but we're all sales professionals here, so we get it. At the end of the day, when you get more successful at sales, you realize that it's not really about sales. It's not about persuading somebody else. It's about just helping them connect the dots and being somebody on the other side who's able to help them do that. That's it.
So there's I love the idea of connecting the dots. That visual just helps me as I'm thinking about it from a prospect perspective. Like, if I can help this person connect the dot, they're going to be more likely to want to do business with me because they might get something revealed to them in a process that they didn't realize or forgot about. So with that being said, I want to talk. There's 3 points that we connected about before when it comes to persuasion. 1, there's verbal communication, 2, nonverbal, and then 3, there's listening to getting to open, like getting them to open up more. But I want to go deeper into why persuasion is so critical in your. What's the difference? We talked about why it's so critical, but what's the problem if I don't understand the psychology of persuasion? Maybe put it in that sense.
If you don't understand the psychology of persuasion, then you will find yourself trying so hard to close deals and trying so hard to, play the numbers game and trying so hard to, make somebody else understand for no avail. It'll feel like you're hitting up against a brick wall and it'll feel like you're stuck.
Yeah. I like the description there, feel like you're stuck. I think for me in the past, it felt like I thought I was saying the right things. I felt like I was saying the right things. And, at the end of the day, when I met with my, my manager and we're going over the pipeline, they're like, bro, this doesn't look all that great. You're talking about, you got these deals here, Donald, but when they drill down with me, I'm like, crap, maybe I didn't do the right things. And I was missing cues on that. So when it comes to those nonverbal, let's talk about the verbal communication. Can you talk to me about a little bit more about verbal communication in the sense of psychology of persuasion?
Yeah. With verbal communication, I like that we're starting here because in my mind, it's actually the least important, and we can kind of
Interesting.
grow the conversation into what's more
Interesting.
important. So, with verbal communication, um, obviously, it's most important when you are on like a phone call with
Yeah.
somebody. There is not much other communication. There's some, but not much. But the vast majority of people these days are selling over Zoom, video conferencing, or in person, right?
Yeah.
And so with verbal communication, it is actually the part of your communication that the brain processes last.
What?
So if you are speaking to somebody, their brain will process your nonverbal communication first and then your verbal communication. Now, within your verbal communication, there's two subsets. There's the verbal communication in your tone, your rhythm, your cadence, and then there are the words that you say and actually understanding those.
Mm.
So the tone, cadence, pausing, rhythm, that gets processed first, and then the words that you say and their understanding of them gets processed last. So really, the words that you say are like the least important thing ever. And I shouldn't say least important, they matter. They absolutely matter. However, they're just processed last. So if you use the wrong tone, if you come across as like just really aggressive, on point, punchy, excited, and this person is not really turned on by that,
Mhm.
then you're probably not going to get much of a chance to, even if you use the right words, they're not going to listen to you very much
Yeah.
because their brain has already shut down.
Interesting. That's fascinating. That the about the tonality. I always thought that that would be the first component.
Mm.
But as you're saying it, I'm like, duh, visual. It's probably going to be a little bit higher than that. But your tonality. I think we spend a lot of time focusing on that as sellers. Like,
Hmm.
how do I sound? And I think,
Yes.
especially in our day and age, where we are, my image coach, she probably would be like, "I told you, Donald," but she's always like, the way you look in your body language
Hmm.
play a critical role. And I'm like, that doesn't make, in my mind, I was thinking that wasn't that big of an impact compared
Uh-huh.
to me articulating a value proposition. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
absolutely. And at the end of the day, I think important is probably not the right word to use. Like there's no part of communication that's more important
Yeah.
versus another. Uh, but in the order that gets processed, I think that does matter
Interesting.
because of exactly what I said, right? If we're speaking, let's just say you walk outside right now, Donald,
Hmm.
right? And you walk outside your house, and there's this person down the street yelling, waving their arms, like red in the face. You can hear that like there's a ton of anxiety and fear in their voice. Like you don't have to know what words they're saying, but you know something's wrong,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same exact thing when you're on a call. If you have the wrong tonality, the wrong cadence, that prospect is going to know something is wrong. And their brain will process your words in a different way than if you had a different tonality, different cadence, different rhythm.
Interesting. One example you told me about before was mask.
Hmm.
Can you talk to me about that when it comes to the verbal communication?
With, yeah. Um, this one can go pretty deep, but
Uh
the idea, so everybody uses words for a reason.
oh.
And the words that people use are very important, whether they realize it or not. Because as we're growing up, as we're raised, we assign different meanings to words, right? That's how words work. If I say the word elephant,
Yeah.
like to a baby, that means absolutely nothing. It's
Yeah.
just a random combination of vowels and consonants and sounds. But as you grow up, you learn to assign the meaning of the word elephant to like that big gray thing to stay away from if you ever see it in the wild, right?
Yeah.
Uh, or we associate it with the sound that it makes. We associate it with a certain part of the world that it lives in. So your brain makes all these associations with words. So
Yeah.
words are very important, and you can analyze the words that somebody uses to figure out what's called a social mask. So a social mask plays into the idea of, uh, interrogation, behavior profiling, and analysis. Like that whole world of things uses this a lot. But it's the idea that every human being is wearing a social mask. They want other people to view them in a certain way. Now, this might be different from the way that you want to view yourself or the values that you have or anything like this. This is purely in a social context. How do I want other people to view me? Now, there's 6 main masks: significance, acceptance, approval, intelligence, pity, and power. And just to go through very quickly, they sound exactly like they sound like they should be. Significance is the social need to be seen as significant. They make an impact on the world. They stand out from the crowd. Their biggest fear is being seen as like a sheep in the herd, not being standing out, right? Acceptance is the idea that you want to be seen as part of the crowd. You want to be seen as, like, if you have you ever been on a call with somebody and they're wearing like an alumni hoodie, as an
Yeah, yeah,
example?
yeah.
Like, they want to be seen as part of that crowd. Harvard hoodie, example.
Mm-hmm.
Approval is the next one. They want to have approval from another human being. Sometimes they'll do like self-effacing things. They'll talk about, oh, I'm not that good at, sales or whatever, just to get the other person to say, dude,
Oh,
what
you
are
are
you talking
good.
about? You're so good. Yeah, exactly. Intelligence is you want to be seen as intelligent. Shocker. Your biggest fear is that other people will see you as not very smart or dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Pity is the only one with like kind of a negative connotation. It can also be reworded as the understanding mask, but they just want to be understood. They want
Yeah,
other people to see how bad they have it, right?
yeah.
You've probably been on a call with somebody that will just wax eloquent for 10, 15, 20 minutes on this terrible situation, how bad they have it, all the bad things that happen
Oh
in their
my
life.
goodness.
Exactly that. The last one is power. They just want to be seen as powerful, as strong. Their biggest fear is being seen as weak. So all that you have to do is listen to people's words, and they will very clearly enunciate which one of those they are. And then you can use that in sales in order to do many, many different things. You can compliment them in the way that they want to be complimented. You can, if they're exhibiting behavior that you don't want on the call or isn't conducive to making a decision, you can, kind of admonish them for that in the way that complements their biggest fear according to their needs. And you can align what you do, each product, service, features, benefits, whatever, with what they value the most and how they want to be seen. So I'll give you an example.
Sure.
Let's say, Donald, you may not necessarily be this, but let's say it for conversation. You're a significance intelligence
I'm a
mask,
pretty
right?
big
One
deal.
of those two or both. And so you want to be seen as somebody that stands out from the crowd, and is, smarter than the rest of the room.
Mm-hmm.
One way that I might do this, let's say that, I'm selling like a marketing service or something.
Sure.
Like, Donald, once you have this in place, you're going to be part of the top 1% who don't struggle with marketing anymore, who aren't fighting for scraps, but you're going to be set apart from your competition in a way that everybody knows who Donald is and what he does. And ultimately, you will have, the smartest system that exists to be set up within your business, so that now you don't have to, work harder, you're working smarter, and you have this intelligent system that will consistently bring you these leads.
Dope.
Does that sound like a smart thing to do for you?
It
Right?
sounds very smart.
So
Again, I'm validating it because
yeah,
that's who I am, right?
exactly. So right, everything that I just said there plays into the idea that they want to be seen as, different from everybody else. When I said top 1%,
Mm-hmm.
and then intelligent, like working smarter, not harder. Classic example of, you want to work smarter,
Yeah.
be seen as smart.
Interesting. That's fascinating. I think the masking. I didn't think about that when it came to the verbal side before,
Yeah,
which is, I mean, it just makes sense,
yeah.
dude. This is very insightful. I want to go deeper because now you got me thinking about verbal like this. I want to hear what nonverbal looks like. What should I know about the nonverbal when it comes to persuasion?
Yeah, nonverbal is processed first.
Hmm.
If you look at a diagram of the brain, like if you're listening to this, just go Google parts of the brain real quick, and you'll notice that, whether you believe in evolution or not, basically the idea is that there's the reptilian brain,
Hmm.
there's the mammalian brain, and then there's the neocortex, right, or
Yeah.
the frontal brain. The reptilian brain is the oldest. it is all about survival, right? If you think about a lizard, it doesn't have like social capabilities. It
Hmm.
doesn't have like emotions or thought processes. You can't ask a lizard to solve a 2 plus 2 problem, right? It just doesn't
Yeah.
happen. So that's the most basic one. That's like fight or flight, amygdala, all that sort of stuff. Now, the mammalian brain is what's next. That one is more about emotions and deductions from stimulus in the environment in order to act in a certain way. This is where the thought of like a tribe comes from. So if you look at, a tribe of monkeys as an example, there's an actual social hierarchy within that about, this one's the alpha, this one serves this role. There's a tribe, there's a community. And then the frontal lobe or the neocortex is all about processing information. And, humans have a rather large frontal lobe compared to other mammals. And that's why, we're kind of smarter, right?
Yeah.
That's what sets apart humans. So body language plays into not the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe does not process any information about body language unless it's made aware of it. Like unless you do specific study about this, you learn these facts. Where it is processed is in the reptilian and mammalian brain, which means that if you see somebody, let's just go back to that example down the street. This time you can't hear them, Donald. They're so far away you can't hear them at all. But
Yeah.
you see them waving their arms erratically and like running awkwardly and all those sorts of things. Like you probably will know something is wrong.
Yeah.
Versus if somebody walks up to you and they're like, even if you can't hear them, they're like there's no fear there, right? Because for those of you just listening, I just like threw my arms out, I smiled, eyebrows up, mouth wide open. It's a surefire sign of like this person is not threatening at all, right?
No.
So you can use all of this within a sales context to trigger things in the other person that you want them to have. So, as an example, Donna, you've probably experienced this when you have somebody come on the call and they're just super closed off.
Yeah.
They're like super sales resistant. They've been through a million of these calls before. They just want the price. So
New
you
York
can
people. New
use,
York people.
yeah, exactly, exactly. You can use body language in order to help this person feel safe enough to open up and let their guard down. And it can be very, very simple things from your eyebrows. Doing a simple eyebrow flash is a great way when you first come on a call. You're like, hey, what's going on? Your
Mhm.
eyebrows just quickly go up. You'll probably notice the other person will mirror you. They'll do the same
Yeah.
thing. Your blink rate. If you're blinking very quickly, or generally, if I can distill down body language to two things, it's opening versus closing language.
Hmm.
So if it's closed, arms crossed. If it's
Yeah.
open, it's arms open. Uh, a closed one might also be, legs crossed versus
Hmm.
open is not. Closed off might be turtling, shoulders up versus relaxed shoulders, neck open, right?
Yeah.
And then the other version is certain versus anxious. So certain behaviors are slower, right? The speed goes down. If you think about a Great Dane versus a Chihuahua, Chihuahua is scared. And so it moves very, very quickly, jittery all
Yeah.
the time. Whereas a Great Dane, super duper slow, very relaxed, very certain of himself. Um, and then this goes for every single part of your body, whether it be your fingers, your eyes, your face, your mouth, your lips, literally everything falls into one of those two categories. So if you can just pay attention for and try to exhibit more open body language and slower, more certain body language, then
Yeah.
you will come across as more confident, more authoritative. You will gain more compliance and suggestibility from the prospect, and you'll just notice things kind of go your way.
I love this. The so many components here that you tie back to the eyes open versus closed, and I think that if we were to go with just that understanding, open versus closed, I think that makes it's very easy for us to remember this part of the conversation in our
Yeah.
sales approach. I love it. All right, now the last component, listening, getting to open. I think that's what we had talked about before. Can you go
Hmm.
deeper on that? What exactly that means in the third part?
Yes. Um, One of the biggest reasons people feel unsafe or closed off or sales resistant
Uh-huh.
is because of past experiences that they didn't like,
Mm.
right? You don't just come out of the womb and, a solicitor comes up to the front door and you just start crying because, somebody is trying to sell you something. It's something that you learn over time, right?
Yeah.
And so if that is a learned behavior, then you have to break the cycle of what triggers that behavior. So maybe, you may have heard of, let's just talk about like a door-to-door salesman, right?
Yeah.
Classic kind of look. Maybe they're wearing jeans, khakis, or shorts, and like a polo. Got the running sneakers on, probably a nice watch, necklace, like classic kind of look.
Yeah.
But if you instead break the script that runs in this person's head, and maybe you put on, like, I don't know, cargo shorts, you
Yeah.
put on a plain white top with like a reflective orange vest on, you carry a clipboard, maybe even like a hard hat, like stupid stuff.
Yeah.
To where now there's a different script running in their head about, maybe there's something wrong with my house when you actually walk up. So now you're breaking the script, which I'll wrap this back around to listening in just a second.
Sure.
You're breaking the script in their head for what a normal sales conversation looks like. It's the same exact thing with listening. If you think of the stereotypical salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
they are very forward. They talk a lot, right? They're very good with their words. They wax eloquent. They cut people off, et cetera, et cetera. If you think about your best friend, they probably do a little bit less of that. They probably listen to what you have to say. Maybe even in your close relationships. If you are blessed with a great person like I am, in your relationship who will actually listen to you, like that's a different script that runs in your head. And so you as a salesperson, if you're able to just like shut up for once and just listen, you might be surprised at how much people open up to that because they feel like you actually care, right?
Mm.
And you do, because you wouldn't be listening if you didn't care.
Yeah. Interesting. And I think the fact that you put it to the friend side makes a difference in my head as you were describing. Because I
Mm-hmm.
started trying to picture the conversations that I've had with a friend. It's
Mm-hmm.
much, it's much, I would say, I don't feel rushed in those conversations because,
Mm-hmm.
I have to try to get to get my point across.
Yeah.
They I know they will listen to me and I will listen to them in that dialogue. And I feel like you said, it's a learned behavior. I feel like sometimes we program our buyers to behave that way towards us. But if we were to come as in that description as that friend, I think that makes it different. Not that we're best friends, but the fact is, if I come at you in that way, I think that makes a difference. Am I making sense on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Interesting. Dang, man. So let's wrap this all, put it in a nice bow. Um, I think there was an example you had. I can't remember. We were talking about authenticity. Why sellers have a hard time with this being authentic. Do you mind going deeper into that part just for a second when it ties to this idea of listening?
Yes. The more authentic you are, the more naturally all of this comes. The very short version is that your frontal cortex is not uh, programmed to be able to help you with body language and with
Mm,
nonverbal communication. It is only for verbal communication. And so if you are trying to think about how to act, if you're trying to think about, okay, I got to open body language, I got to slow down, like the
yeah.
more that you think about that consciously, the less authentic it will come across. And the other person's mammalian reptilian brain is millions of years old. Like it's
Yeah.
very adept at reading nonverbal communication. And so people pick up on that. So the more authentic you can be, right? Practice all this stuff. Yes, do
Hmm.
it in your off time. Practice like Steph Curry, I forget, has only taken like 3% of shots during game time compared to how many he's taken during practice. Like
Interesting.
practice in your off time so that when game time comes, you can just be there, be your authentic self. And those skills that you practice will naturally work their way into what you do so that you can be this truly authentic self. All those things work for you and not against you. And ultimately, you'll have better results than you probably ever imagined you could.
I love this. Christian, so many insights here that's helping us when it comes to psychology. If listeners listen to this episode feel like I want to get connected with this guy, I want to learn more from him, what is the best way for them to go about doing so?
You can find me pretty much anywhere on the internet. If you Google my name, you'll find it. I'd say Facebook, I'm probably the most active on. And then definitely at the link down in the show notes, I've got a special group of things for people who are listening here just for you. It's the salesdojo.co/sales evangelist. If you simply go there, there's some free stuff, there's some cheap stuff, there's some more expensive stuff. If you already realize that maybe you want to learn more about it, you can. But that's how you find me.
I love it. We're going to go ahead and put that in the show notes, guys. Christian, thank you so much for taking the time to come on our show today. Appreciate you, man. And I'm going to go see how I can be more persuasive on my next call now.
Let's do it.
Thanks, man. I'm telling you, man, that was amazing. Christian, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I want you to take advantage of the offer that he's giving you. You can find more details about that in the show notes. He's like sitting here like giving away all this good stuff. And he has a link to his, we have a link down to, you can connect with him on Facebook as well. But literally, he's giving you so much from the details here. You can find all the stuff that he has to offer. Just go to that link in the show notes and tell him you heard him here on the Sales Evangelist podcast. Also, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit me up. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn as well, to be able to give and pass along to you some information that can help you in your sales game. Listen, I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. I want you to raise your level of thinking, but most importantly, I want you to go out and do big things. See you on the next one.